Truth here, and it's time for more Otaku Evolution. Be sure to like, subscribe, and contribute to my Patreon. Hey, remember Eden of the East? No? I reviewed it a couple of years ago. You sure you don't remember it? What do you mean you don't watch all my videos? Well, surely you contribute to the Patreon.
You fucking people.
Eden of the East, remember? Cool phones, the ID app, political intrigue, a lady who cuts off penises. Come on, you gotta at least remember the song by Oasis. Oh, right, they didn't use that in the US release. Shit. You know what? I'm not explaining it again. You go and watch my video on it. It's still available on YouTube. No, go on. I'll wait. I mean, if you pause this video, I'll wait. Watched it yet? All caught up? Good. Because this video includes spoilers. Really disappointing spoilers. Since preventing a second missile attack incident in Tokyo, Akira Takizawa has disappeared and Saki, his potential love interest, travels to New York City to get a lead on his whereabouts. Since disappearing, Takizawa has been made a public mascot for the happenings in Tokyo, called the Air King, thanks to the machinations of one of the other Seleção, a rich guy who's making Mr. Outside's game a hobby. Of course, that four-eyed bureaucrat Mononobe is also up to his old tricks, working within the Japanese government towards his goal of creating his own ideal country. When Saki reunites with Takizawa, he's going under the name Inuma, and has no memory of her or their adventures with the Seleção. The two become targeted by a Seleção that's a wannabe film director, who wants to kill them in the most theatrical way. Meanwhile, the Eden of the East group that runs the ID app are having trouble operating because Mononobe is having them investigated by the government. He's also trying to destroy the Jewish systems of his competition in the game.
Accepted. Noblesse oblige. I pray for your continued success as a raise and rebuild savior.
When Inuma, returns with Saki to Japan, he's caught up in a scandal because he's been manipulated into posing as the late Prime Minister's illegitimate son as part of a plan to make him King of Japan. The widow of PM Inuma is not impressed with Takizawa at all, wanting him arrested for fraud among other things. Takizawa trusts Saki in tracking down his mother, who turned out to have been in a relationship with the late PM, but also turning out to be a pretty lousy mother. Anyway, Mr. Outside's game starts to wrap up after various parties converge after trying to outmaneuver each other. But how will it end? Who will be the winner of the game and transform Japanese society? And after all this build-up, is the ending worth it?
Nope.
If Eden of the East is known for anything, it's known for its political intrigue, the cool Seleção phones, and a really anticlimactic, pointless ending that makes the whole thing a shaggy dog story. Seriously, these movies take all the potential of the series and flushes it down the toilet with a bowl full of diarrhea. And the sad thing is, it had so much potential. For one, I enjoy the Eden of the East Club, their quirks and interactions. I like quite a few characters in the series, but watching the club work together is like hanging out with a bunch of friends that I never had. I really ended up feeling like I knew these people, from the wise leader Hirasawa, the adorable Michan, feisty Sis, put upon Osagi and Kasuga, and the strange wisdom of Panties. If they had fleshed these movies out as a second season of the series, I could see them doing more to develop the members as individual characters, which they clearly didn't have the time for here, to my dismay. But they were always fun company.
We don't have to eat that stuff. We do have other food, you know.
What happened to your neat spirit? Life isn't all about fancy food and nice things, you know.
This from you? The same guy who could barely leave his house for 2 years because he was living on an allowance he got from his parents?
Don't you get it, man? That's what being a NEET is about.
The key relationship in these movies, as with the series, is the one between Takizawa and Saki. It's hard to really pin down the dynamic between the two because Takizawa is enigmatic and eccentric, whereas Saki is fairly plain Jane and subdued. The only thing Saki really brings to the table is her shared tenacity with her love interest. The two trust each other with their secrets and ambitions implicitly, which is touching, but I feel like Saki can be a little on the bland side. She's definitely a stand-in for the audience, a fairly ordinary person with a window into a world full of much more colorful personas. It's because of this that the chemistry between her and Takizawa is fairly one-sided. While it's clear why these two like each other, I could never quite get why they were romantically attracted to each other. Any romance forged under stressful circumstances is bound to falter when it meets the mundane nature of everyday life. Fortunately for these two, though, they never face that. And in the end, Takizawa leaves Saki in the dust again, off to find his next adventure. Not a great romance for the ages, it seems.
So far, that morning was the last we'd seen or heard of Takizawa.
The main draw, though, of Eden of the East, and the thing the plot largely hinges on, is the game that Mr. Outside is playing with the Seleção, wherein they've all been given 10 billion yen to save Japan. Now, it's clear at this point the role of the supporter, who's supposed to eliminate those who run out of money before they can complete their mission or misuse their funds, is pretty much a bullshit boogeyman that doesn't really exist, because none of the players seem to be getting any visits from them, no matter what they do. So they're pretty much free to use their money however they want, which means, for example, Mr. Amateur Director can use his resources to try to kill Takizawa and Saki, or Wananobe can use his money to manipulate government officials. The trailers which cart around the Jewish computers become an instrumental part of the game in the lead-up to the end, with Wananobe trying to destroy his opponents, while also securing his own. But Takizawa throws a wrench in the plan by taking control both of his and Monanobe's Jewish system trailers. And surprise, it turns out that the Jewish system is based on Mr. Outside's granddaughters. Somehow? It's never really made clear.
I get it. If he wants to stay safe from missiles, and all he has to do is keep his trailer close to number 1's, right? That's my number 9!
Ultimately, Takizawa's final, most important play in the game comes in the final act of the second movie, which involves him setting himself up as a terrorist, again, in order to rally people together, again. I can't really talk about the end of the game without getting into the baffling political intrigue that was interesting in the TV series, but just falls flat in the movies. It could just be a cultural clash thing, or it could be that these movies are just talking out of their collective ass. Eden of the East politics are as belligerent and convoluted as ever. Maybe it's just that, not being Japanese, I'm not picking up on the right cues. The movies play lip service to the inheritance tax, victim culture, corporate hiring practices, and individualism and such, but it's a shallow kind of political referencing, so it might as well not even be there. Nobody seems to have any real solutions to the problems presented. They all just talk in circles and hope we're all impressed with the fact that they address these matters at all. But it all just ends up being window dressing for the drama of the game and how Takizawa reacts to his situation. Come to think of it, what's the deal with Takizawa wanting to be king of Japan? Japan is a royal family, but they don't really do anything. And being the prime minister isn't a king by any measure. And how would Takizawa becoming a king help Japan? I may not know much about the politics of Japan, but this all seems like a really terrible plot point. How would being the son of the late Prime Minister put him in line to becoming the next one? It's not hereditary. Is Kenshin Kamiyama just oblivious to these things, or is he actively ignoring them in favor of drama? Because this is just stupid.
So, how does it feel, knowing that you really are the Prime Minister's son?
You knew? Of course you did. I don't know. Guess it hasn't sunk in yet.
Well, then, let's get back to the business at hand.
After everything, Mr. Outside calls an end to the game. All the remaining Seleção are declared victors, and all the players get their memory of the game wiped, except for Takizawa, who had already wiped them twice, and at this point is apparently immune. The NEETs Takizawa reached start living a communal life and waiting for him to return. Corporations start relaxing their hiring policies at first, striking a deal with the NEETs to employ many of them, but after a while reversed course, and according to Saki, after 6 months, Japan still hadn't changed much. In a post-credit scene, Takizawa takes off with Mr. Outside in the latter's taxicab, on to new adventures we never get to see. Wait, let me get this straight. All that stuff he did for the NEETs ended up fizzling out in the end? Are you kidding me? If I wanted a story about a man who accomplishes nothing, I have my life! Why have I been watching this series up to now with Takizawa as some big failure? And what an anticlimax! After all the drama and danger, Takizawa merely has a casual conversation with Mononobe, who almost gets away completely untouched. Sure, he gets his memory wiped and may or may not have been killed by Yuki in a mutual kill, but it feels like he got off pretty light regardless. I mean, he manipulated Yuki into firing missiles at Tokyo twice, and probably did a lot of property damage when he had missiles fired at the trailers. He needed prison time, in my opinion. Whatever the case is, everything at the ending seems like an afterthought, like Kamiyama simply ran out of ideas. Eden of the East whimpers to the finish line. I enjoyed Mr. Outside's game, the Eden of the East Club, the phones, the mystery, but when it really counted, all these elements faltered in the form of dwindling returns. How disappointing. This series deserved better. Well, that's enough about that. Next time, I'm returning to the Lupin the Third franchise, where we'll experience the classic series that started it all. Until then, see ya!
It's over there on the merry-go-round. I think that's the gold ring you were talking about. I didn't know what you meant, so I did some research. Japanese merry-go-rounds don't have gold rings. That's what you noticed on the day of the last missile attack.